kind of random.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a bonus episode. Shout out to the producers on patreon.com/Hip Hop Now. And I wanted to do an episode that reflected my taste as a hip hop fan. Now, as you see on the screen, I'm also a big music fan, right? You got a little bit of jazz, you know what I'm saying? Some Ahmad Jamal Trio, Jazz is Dead if you want to go more recent. You got some classic hip hop like Above the Law right here, right? You got a couple of things. You got, as you can see, even just looking at what I have right here on the screen, my taste varies in music. But I wanted to do a bonus episode where I focus on 10 albums that sort of reflect some of your favorite artists, but they're albums or mixtapes that rarely get spoken about. And obviously, there's going to be some on my list that you're going to say to yourself, yo, I listen to that all the time. Trust me, I know the feeling. The point of this episode is not just to point out maybe one of your favorites or one of my favorites, but universally, these albums or mixtapes almost never get brought up when discussing great albums or mixtapes, right? And not necessarily because it wasn't that great. Some of them are really that good. Some of them were slept on. Some of them were forgotten about. But this is the key. Each artist that I'm going to mention in this podcast has a mystique that comes with mentioning their name, right? When you think of Dr. Dre, you think of The Chronic, right? But you never think of that Aftermath compilation he put out. Not that that was good, but that's my point, right? When you think about The Wu, you think about Into the 36 Chambers as a group, but you don't think about projects like Chamber Music, which paired a lot of Wu-Tang Clan members with some of your favorite artists. It's albums, mixtapes, compilations that came out that people either slept on or forgot about or maybe never heard, maybe saw it back then, but was like, nah, I don't know if I want to listen to that, and then totally forgot about it. And the point of doing this is because we live in such a time where music is so rapid, so disposable. It comes out one week, you're not even talking about it the next week, that it takes something away from the enjoyment of listening to great music, right? Because you can have an album you're loving for a week, but if you're a person who wants to stay on top of what's new and what's dope, well, chances are you're going to see what's out the following week. And if something great comes out and you start to listen to that, you probably will never go back to that other project. So this podcast is dedicated to the music fan. Those of you, like myself, that go through your collection. As you can see, my collection is pretty crazy with, I got After Seven, I got all kinds of stuff. And everything up here is something I, loved or liked or whatever. And it's hip hop, R&B, all of that. So let's start at the top. You're going to hear some typing because we're going to go straight to them, right? We're going to go straight to my collection using iTunes. The first one is GZA's Pro Tools. Let's find that in my collection. Right? The GZA, 2008, GZA dropped a 16-track album, which featured RZA's on here. As you can see, True Master was on here. Rock Marcy's on here. Master Killer and RZA. And I remember someone, saying to me like, yo, GZA's new album, Pro Tools, is dope. You should check it out. Now, this is 2008. Liquid Swords was a long time ago. I think Liquid Swords was like 1995 right? So the whole check for GZA album had kind of died for me. So 2008, I'm thinking, a GZA album? Do I really want to hear this? You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm thinking to myself. Can it be any good? And when I say that, I'm not saying that I ceased to become a fan of certain artists because so much time has passed. It's just that from Liquid Swords on, GZA albums didn't do it for me as much as that first one. So if I wasn't satisfied since Liquid Swords, and I felt like albums that follow that didn't really give me that vibe or what I was looking for as a fan of GZA, then at some point in 2008, right, you're not really checking for them. But I decided to give it a spin, and when I tell you, if you are a GZA fan, if you only like Liquid Swords, then chances are you may or may not like this, right? Because you really only like that one album. But if you liked a couple of albums by GZA, and when you think of GZA, you think of the wordplay, you know what I'm saying? The intelligence in his bars. Trust me, this is an album you definitely want to check out because I was highly surprised. And every now and again, I go back to it, and I probably go back to it more than Liquid Swords only because it's a quote-unquote newer album from the GZA that I enjoy and probably still haven't listened to it as much as I've listened to his album Liquid Swords. Just being honest with that one. The next album, The Silent Partner. This was an album with Havoc and Alchemist. Let me type it in real quick. The Silent. Are we just gonna, okay, boom. See how that works? It'll be interesting as we type in the words to see what other albums pop up. But Havoc and Alchemist. 11 tracks, 38 minutes long. This one came out, I don't remember the year it came out, which is unfortunate, but it definitely was somewhere in the past, in the 2010s, definitely. As you can see, yes, Prodigy of Mob Deep is featured on this record. Prodigy, you know, has done numerous projects with Alchemist. Method Man's on here, Core Mega's on here. And this was one of those quote-unquote mixtape / albums that I was highly surprised. Like, because obviously when you say Mob Deep and you say Havoc of Mob Deep, there's a certain tone in music that comes to mind, right? And lyrics. And you think to yourself, and I'm being honest, I'm more of a Prodigy fan as a rapper than I am of Havoc. But when I tell you, Havoc holds down this project masterfully. If you listen to this project and you feel like I'd rather just listen to Mob Deep, then obviously, of course, you're not gonna like it because it's not a Mob Deep album. But if you mess with Havoc as an MC, and you mess with his production, and you definitely mess with Alchemist's production, definitely find this one now because it is slept on in a lot of ways. Some people don't even know it exists. Some people didn't even check for it because they prefer Prodigy over Havoc. But when I tell you, if you've ever liked Havoc verses, this is probably the best look you can get as far. This is Havoc's best solo effort, hands down. And Alchemist does his job with the beats. Let's move on to the next one. I don't want to spend too much time on each one. The next one is from your homie, maybe mine's, Cameron. This one is called Ghetto Heaven, right? Let's see if it just pops up. Oh shoot! I mean, you gotta spell it right for it to pop up, right? Ghetto Heaven. Let's hit that enter button. You knew Tupac was gonna pop up too. Ghetto Heaven Volume 1. 19 tracks on this one, coming in at about an hour. Has 19 tracks. This one came out also in the 2010s. This might be 2012, 2013 sometime. As you can see, the production is kind of everywhere, right? You got A-Rap music, you got a couple of joints produced by Cameron, probably more skit-wise. Feature-wise, you might not know half of these cats. Sin City is featured on here. Tiff the Gift, Daniel, I don't even know who that is on here. But the point is when this dropped, right? Cameron hadn't had anything out, right? You talking about the Dipset movement is somewhat over or faded a little bit. You haven't had a Cameron solo in a minute. And I see this mixtape is coming out. Killer Cam Ghetto Heaven Volume 1. Got Ronald McDonald on the cover, holding the gat, the Hamburglar in the background. And I'm like, damn, I really like this cover. It doesn't make sense, right? When you look at the cover and you see Ghetto Heaven and you see Ronald McDonald and all, you're like, what is going on? But when I tell you, again, when you mention the name of the artist, Cameron, and all the thoughts that come with that as far as what he raps about, how he raps, the skits, the whole Dipset feel, his feel as a soloist, this was when I knew Cameron could still do what he does best, and that's be humorous, be flashy, give you bars every now and again, be trendy with some of the beats and the flows. This was a really dope mixtape that got a lot of burn for me when I was in the gym. And again, like I mentioned with Silent Partner and Pro Tools, a project from maybe one of your favorite artists that maybe you haven't listened to it ever. Maybe you haven't listened to it since it came out. Maybe you forgot about it. Definitely dope. And again, I want to reiterate, think about the artist and what comes along with that artist when you say the name, because that's the point of what, I know I keep saying it, but that's the point of these projects. So when you press play and your expectations tell you Dipset, Cameron, Horse and Carriage, Dipset Anthem, you know what I'm saying? Purple Haze, you know, Come Home With Me. All those different things start to go on in your head, and you get nostalgic, and you know what you want to hear. You gear up to hit play. It meets the expectations of a Cameron fan. Next up, Little Brother. This was a mixtape that, where is it? This was a mixtape in 2007, right? Now, Little Brother they got a lot of mixtapes on the low that are really dope. But I picked this one in particular because I think this one was so good, and it's like an album, right? I don't think it's considered to be one of their albums, but it's more of a mixtape. And this was like after the official, it's Little Brother is, you know, Fonte and rapper Big Pooh, Big Pooh. I don't want to go to whatever, rapper Big Pooh. And when I heard this for the first time back in 2007, I was like, Ninth Wonder, who? This was so dope. And I know some people see, they like, oh, you know, got Lil Wayne on here. That song is fire. You know what I'm saying? Like Lil Wayne's verse is dope. Another dope song on here called Good Clothes. Like Sirens is dope. This is an extremely dope album. Like, again, if somebody evokes the name Little Brother, like you like Little Brother, you know, and you think about the minstrel show, listening, all that good stuff. When you hit play on this one, even mixtapes like Separate But Equal, when you hit play on Get Back, you will not be disappointed, man. Some of the dopest bars and beats I've heard from this duo of all time, honestly. Some of the dopest stuff, and it's almost criminal how we really, after time, will focus on the music that they made that had the biggest impact when they got so much more to offer. Hold on, my iPad just went off on me. Okay, just hold it down for me. We almost through. The next one, right? Since we talking about being fans of music, is M.O.P. Marksman Cinema. This was a mixtape from M.O.P. As you can see right there, the official mixtape. The official M.O.P. mixtape says something else there. What does that say? Limited edition double CD. This is a 2-disc joint. Both of them are an hour, basically. Released in 2004. Now, I believe, if I remember correctly, I believe this 2-disc mixtape from M.O.P. represents a lot of music they recorded for when they were on Rockefeller, as well as G-Unit, or at least in between that time of both. Because remember, they never really released an album on Rockefeller or G-Unit. And I remember when this came out and it said The Marksman, and I was like, well, who the hell is The Marksman? But then when you hit play, it's like, well, this is M.O.P. And maybe there was something with that, but it says M.O.P. on the cover, but who knows? But nevertheless, if you like M.O.P., did you know that they had a double disc in 2004 that featured some of their prime like bars in hip hop and songs you probably never heard of before? Obviously, there's a couple joints up here that made their rounds. Like this one has, maybe this one doesn't have any of the more well-known joints, but this too definitely did. Like Downtown Swingers on here, Rugged Never Smooth, FMOP, G-Boy Stance. Well, Guns N' Roses was on their first album, so maybe it was more of a mixtape featuring, some greatest hits and stuff like that, but not necessarily the hits that we know. But regardless, if I say M.O.P. and you're a fan, but you've only really checked out the albums in their catalog, right? Like, I listen to Warriors, I listen to, what's their first album? I can't remember off the top of my dome. But if you listen to the albums in a catalog and felt like, damn, I wish M.O.P. just made more music as a group, this one, I honestly couldn't even tell you where to find it. I don't even know if it's on iTunes and Spotify. It may be, maybe not. Definitely got to be somewhere on one of these mixtape websites. But Marksman Cinema is like, if you love M.O.P. and you just want to hear some stuff you never heard before, or maybe you forgot or lost because maybe you had some of these records scattered on other mixtapes, this is a nice press play and just let it ride. It's really dope, and it almost never gets talked about because it was sort of confusing. Again, The Marksman. I remember when I first got this, it didn't say the official M.O.P. mixtape on it. It just said The Marksman Cinema. And because I was on a radio show, that's how we knew, like, oh, this is like an M.O.P. double album damn near. Pretty dope. Another one that I discovered not too long ago, a couple years ago, Pete Rock and I was gonna say in Coolie High and Camp. Well, that's kind of close, right? When you think about it. But Pete Rock and Camp Low, 80 Blocks to Tiffany's Part 2. This came out in 2013. As you can see, I got it via Dat Piff. 26, 27 records on here, but don't worry, it's an hour and 18 minutes. Features on here are all over the place. Talib Kweli's on here, Uncle Murder, M.O.P. obviously. Not obviously, but M.O.P's on here, segue. Mac Miller's on here, Ab Soul is on here. It's crazy, right? Who else is on here? Let's see if we can look real quick. Ab Soul's on another joint too. I didn't realize that. I think Pete Rock rhymes on a couple of these. But nevertheless, you want to talk about surprisingly dope. Shouldn't be surprisingly, but for 2013, Pete Rock and Camp Lo, what's your expectation in 2013? Maybe in 96, your expectation would have been really high. But 2013, and when I say this is a very, very, very dope mixtape, it's almost like Pete Rock's beats combined with Camp Lo's rhyming style is something that should have happened a long time ago. You could have never guessed how dope this would be as far as like a combination of the two. And it's really dope, man. This is on the mixtape side of things, so you want to check for it. So if you like Pete Rock beats and you always love Camp Lo, what you remember of them, and maybe not so much Pete Rock, it's Pete Rock now. His production is so varied compared to maybe the early 90s when he had, he was kind of known for horns. His production is so varied on here that it's just a dope listen, man. And for some people might feel like, it's a bit long, but again, you're not listening to all of these at once. You just put it on and you go into it with the vibes of Camp Lo and Pete Rock on the production, and you'll be surprised at how dope records like Clean Getaway featuring Uncle Murder just sounds dope. No Uniform with M.O.P. just really dope records. Mac Miller does his thing on Megan Good. Just really dope albums and record. Or mixtape. The next one I have up here is from none other than Ruck and Rock. Whoa, we can't just do Rock. Oh, well, actually we can. Because boom, there it is. Rock put out Rock of Helter Skelter, Rock and Ruck. You know him. Sean Price was Ruck. Rock was Rockness Monster. The name of his solo album, Rockness AP, which is after Sean Price, because this was after Sean Price, aka Ruck, had passed away. But this was a solo album from Rock in 2017. 14 tracks, 52 minutes, features from the Wu, right? Inspector Deck, Method Man, Smith & Wesson with Tech and Steel of Smith & Wesson. Ron Browns is on here. Y'all remember him? M.O.P. Oh, wow. M.O.P.'s on everything. Imagine that. Buckshot's on here. This, to me, was kind of sort of like a slept-on album, right? Because I know there weren't a lot of people in 2017 talking about this one, and I couldn't believe it. The first record, as soon as you hit play, the joint called Just Rap, is so what you expect from Rock. I remember back in Helter Skelter where most people preferred Rock over Ruck, aka Sean Price, right? And I know it's blasphemous to say now, but most people preferred Rock and were begging and thirsty to just see what he could do as a soloist, right? Because he always had an ill flow. He always was dope with the bars. When you hit play on this solo album from 2017 and you hear the record Just Rap, it's everything you imagine it could be. It's such a dope album in a lot of ways. Obviously, every single song on here isn't a home run, but the majority of it is dope. And in a lot of ways, I've been thirsty for a follow-up, but like a decent follow-up or even a better album. Who cares? I just need more music. But nevertheless, if you say you're a person, right? It's like, yeah, I used to rock with Rock and Helter Skelter heavy back in the days. I didn't know he ever had a solo album. What it sound like? This is what you want to listen to for sure. Keeping it in the family, meaning MOP and Boot Camp Click. Price of Fame. Now, why is there only one record showing? Let's correct that. Damn, there it is. Sean Price and Lil Fame of MOP. So now you have one man from Helter Skelter and one man from MOP coming together for one record. Apparently, Sean Price and Lil Wayne were working on this album called Price of Fame. It was released after Sean Price passed away, was released in 2019. Again, I cannot reiterate more than I am right now. 11 songs, 31 minutes, a quick listen. But this is something you didn't think you would want. When I tell y'all, songs like Big Gun versus Little Gun are crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like really crazy records where you like, yo, this ain't just like oh yeah, I expected them to sound good because they're both good. Like, it exceeds those expectations, especially as a duo. Unlikely duo in a lot of ways. The production is dope. Sean Price's appearances on here are just exactly what you expect. Lil Fame does what he does well. Obviously, he's always been nice with the bars. So again, if you hear the name Sean Price and you have expectations and you like, oh, and Lil Fame from MOP, and you have expectations there, it needs it. If your expectations is like boom bap, gutter rap, bars, this is exactly that. It meets that expectation to a T. And that's why I wanted it on this list, because honestly, I didn't know what to expect when I heard about this project coming out. And you know how you kind of be in denial and each song convinces you as you go through the project? That's what this did. Price of Fame, Sean Price and Lil Fame, very dope album in a lot of ways. Again, nobody said anything. I was like, damn, this is slept on. The last two. The next one is an album you heard before, maybe, but probably forgot. Snoop Dogg, and it's The Last Meal. Now, wait, what's happening? We come on, Apple search. Let's do that again. Snoop Dogg, The Last. How about we just put in The Last Meal? The Last Meal. We will get there eventually. We will get there eventually. Okay, so that's not working. Let's just do Snoop Dogg. There it is. Coming out of the year 2000, The Last Meal. This was Snoop Dogg's final album on No Limit Records. Now, a lot of people did not like, myself included, when Snoop went to No Limit, because it was not the traditional sound, that Dr. Dre sound that Death Row sound that we all know and love. And no one wanted to touch any albums that Snoop released on No Limit because the expectations were that they were going to be garbage. But this final album, which did feature production from Dr. Dre, as well as Timbaland and a couple of people, obviously, this was so unexpectedly dope. And it almost never gets talked about. And probably for those same reasons I mentioned, right? It was like, oh, No Limit, I'm not touching it. As you can see, it was a ton of features on here, but it has a really strong West Coast. Pardon me, a really strong West Coast feel to it, right? Cocaine is all over this album. MC Ren's on here, Lady of Rage, Nate Dogg, Ice Cube is on here, Trey D is on here, Goldie Loke is on here, Lil Half Dead, you know what I'm saying, is on here. Who else is on here? Cocaine is all over this album. Maybe that's why I like it. Master P is on here, but it's one record. Eve is on here as well. It's featured on this album. Surprisingly dope. Now, I will say this, right? It's not a fully Dr. Dre produced album. So you can't come into this expecting, and I know you had to set expectations based on the artist you mentioned, right? But Snoop Dogg is a West Coast rapper. And there are different sounds that aren't just the G-Funk era, right? They're DJ Quick's style of beats. There's Daz. Daz makes a certain style of beat as well. And if you love the different vibes, that kind of, like when it comes to West Coast hip hop, as far as a traditional sound, you know, there's always a lot of funk, a lot of groove to a lot of the tracks. And this album is just that. Like, I was so surprisingly loving this album that I played it so much back then in 2000. 19 songs, which is pretty long. It's an hour and 17 minutes. But this was Snoop saying, this is the last time anyone else is going to eat off of me. He was going to be his own boss. And he went on to do some really dope albums that you can kind of see if you're watching the video, listed in my collection. But again, if you like Snoop Dogg and you like that traditional West Coast sound that's not limited to Dr. Dre's sound and production, even though he does produce something on here, it's pretty dope. And I was kind of shocked at how much I liked the song that Timbaland produced, which I can't remember which one it was, though, now when I look at it. It's the one when he's saying his name. Oh, yeah, Snoop Dogg, What's My Name Part 2. When I heard that Timbaland had produced that, I was like, I don't know about that. And then when you hear it, it sounds like a Timbaland beat from back then, but I like it a lot. Really slept on album in Snoop Dogg's catalog. And the last album I think you should check out because it brings up some, nostalgia for this particular artist, but at a different point in time in their career, and that's 50 Cent, which I believe this was a mixtape called The Big 10. 12 tracks on here, 39 minutes. This is for all of those people who, after Get Rich or Die Trying soundtrack, The Massacre, when they, that old 50 G, that, you know what I'm saying, that whole era was starting to die down. Guess Who's Back? That whole era, you know that sound I'm talking about, that 50 that you loved when he first came out. It felt like as we got deeper, like 10 years deep into the game, because Get Rich or Die Trying came out 2003, right? So maybe not 10 years, but at least by 2011, we felt like that 50 we knew at the beginning was sort of gone for the most part. You know what I'm saying? Like, when did Curtis come out? Curtis came out 2007, right? Curtis is probably the closest to that Get Rich or Die Trying 50, but we felt like we didn't have that 50 that we fell in love with in the beginning. But this joint, the Big 10, is so dope. And so it was so unexpectedly to myself how much I felt like, damn, this sound like old 50 beats. Even in like the party style ones, like I Just Wanna, right? Like Tony Yayo's on that record. I was just so like happy, you know what I'm saying, at that point in time, to have a 50 Cent project that was new but reminded me of the Get Rich or Die Trying 50 Cent, and not the businessman who was super rich now and didn't really need to make records like that hunger from the beginning. So that is my 10 albums or projects or mixtapes, however way you want to say it, that I think if you don't own them, or if you heard me say any artist that you love and you never heard that album or that project that I mentioned, definitely do yourself a favor and check them out, because all of those projects I mentioned are dope. I mean, I might even make a playlist just using music from all of them, because I think some people will be surprised. And again, maybe I just jogged your memory, and that's the great thing about really preserving music and hip hop, right? There's a lot of music that comes out that people forget. Some of it should be forgettable, but there's so much of it that's dope that unfortunately, we're not gonna pay attention to it until brothers are gone, and now we're going through the catalog to try to cope with them being gone. But if I remember correctly, looking at the list, all of these cats are still here. So check out these albums. Let me know what you think. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Clubhouse, all of it at Vegas World INC, and listen to my weekly podcast about hip hop news called Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you would like to become a producer of this podcast and get bonus episodes before anyone else, most of the time months in advance of the rest of the listening public, you can visit patreon.com/hiphopnow and become a producer today by supporting this podcast. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace. Drop it on the random.